Hi everyone, this is Shayanti bringing you another animation reimagination painting of my series. Today I am venturing to paint Moana. So initially I coated the canvas with a tone, and while I did that I added some gesso to it to get a smoother surface on the canvas. And it doesn't matter what tone you want, what color tone, it's just neutral color toning that I'm doing on the canvas. Next, I drew my drawing out on a separate sheet of paper, and then I transferred the image on my canvas surface, and then I started painting. This painting is a little bit different from all of my other portrait or figurative paintings because I am not doing any underpainting at all. I am trying a more direct approach of painting where I'm just trying to do as much as possible with a single layer of paint with maybe a minimal little color correction in a second layer. So this is very different for me, and I have learned a few tricks and tips on how to do it more effectively without working on any underpainting at all, and wanted to share that with you. So you can see that I'm currently working on the background, which is nothing much, just a simple sky with some colorful clouds and a seascape. I'm not going into very much details in the seascape, just a impression of the ripples in the seawater and a little reflection of the color of the skies, like the sunset colors, back onto the water. That's all about it. So, and more importantly, in this painting, I have tried to keep the tutorial kind of shorter and sweeter. And that's why I'm not going into every step, every little detail of the painting. I'm more focused on a general how to do or general process tutorial. So like I said, I decided to do a more direct approach. Now, so why direct approach as opposed to my usual underpainting and then glazing approach? Obviously, the first and most important reason is time. When you do an underpainting, you need to let that underpainting dry and then go over several glazes, and each of the glazes need to dry, which it adds more amount of time if you're working with oil paints, which I am in this case. So obviously, if you work in a direct method, like you try to put the right colors in the right places, then it is a lot short time. In overall, like the entire amount of time that you spend on each layer is probably much longer, but then each of your layer is you are more focused to make it the final layer. So that's how you save a lot of time. However, in each layer, because you want everything that you're doing, you're trying to make it as perfect and as close to the final layer or the final painting that you're trying to achieve. So you have to put a lot of attention to what colors you're putting where, and every single brush stroke is important, and each area is important, especially if you're painting small like I am in this case, like doing an entire figure in an 11 by 14 canvas. You do not have much scope of making errors. So that is very important to understand. Yes, you are spending less time overall, but you have to focus a lot more on details on each and everything, from the very beginning, and you do not give yourself a lot of scope of making mistakes because you're not going to spend a lot of time on color correction. So the best things or the few approaches or tricks that I found out in the process is that, first of all, put in your darks first. So when you have your darkest areas done first, you know this is how much the darkest areas, how dark the darkest areas is going to be. So accordingly, you can adjust and work your way back to the lighter areas and save your highlights or the brightest highlights for the very end. And also have a little room of color correction at the end. So yes, try to do as much as possible in one single layer, but at the same time make, like, once the paint is dry, you may want to do a little bit of glazing to do the color corrections. Another important thing is that since you are trying to achieve maximum output in one single layer, your colors have to be very vibrant in the very first layer. To achieve that, you want to use your mediums or paint thinners, whatever you use, very minimally. So whenever you're washing your brushes in between changing colors, in the paint thinner, make sure you wipe off your brush really well so that you do not thin out your paint. Similarly, when you're adding medium, only add very little amounts, as much as required to make the paint flow, because the more medium you add, the more translucent the paint becomes. And so each amount, every layer that you're putting, it will become a little less in strength, or will not come out as bright as you want it to be if you add too much of medium. So that is very, very important if you're working on this direct approach. Use medium as less as possible and paint as much as possible. And then just keep adjusting on one area till you get the right color. Just because you have put a wrong color doesn't mean that you have to wait till the paint dries to adjust the color. You can keep on adding color and lightening and darkening the values in the same area for quite a bit. And another thing, if you have made a mistake and there is already too much paint on your canvas and it is not taking any more paint before drying, then take a piece of rag or a clean piece of paper towel and wipe off that area and then reapply color on that area. That will work too. And once more, use a good reference photo, especially if you're working on a figurative or portraiture, because that is what will guide you through the process. You do not have much of time, like you are not going to work on the same area 3 times on 3 different days. You're trying to achieve the most on your first layer. So if you have a good reference photo that is showing you darks and lights very clearly, has a very good contrast already, then it makes your work a lot easier. You have to rely a lot on your contrasting elements when you're painting, trying to paint quickly in one single layer. And finally, if you do not make it in one single layer and there are certain things, just give it a day. Use a fast drying medium like liquid, so it will dry in few hours of time, 7 to 8 hours of time, and then just add a little bit of color correction on the next day. Another tricky thing about this painting is that it had a lot of details, not only the face and the lights and shadows on the face and hair and all that. Yes, those details were already there and pretty important, but there is a lot of clothing detail. And since I'm trying to create a character, reimagine a character, it was important to portray all the clothing and tufts and tassels and everything, tiny details, very accurately. So I spent a lot of time doing that, which is normally not what I do. I do not pay a lot of attention to clothings and all that. I try to work more on the skin and bare face and all the actual physical elements of the portrait or figure. But I wouldn't say it wasn't fun, but I personally do not enjoy painting a lot of details like lace and ornaments and all that. But it was fun. It's a learning process in itself. So as I continue on working on the different areas of the body, you can see that I'm putting in the darks first, and then I'm slowly working up on towards the lighter values. Darks, midtones, lighter midtones, even lighter midtones, and finally topping them up with highlights. And keep working on each area till you are satisfied. Like put color on top of color on top of color, rub off some color if required with a paper towel, and work that way. And keep your paints bright and colors true, and that is how you will get all the details in the certain areas that you're looking for. I used a lot of purples and blues and browns in this painting. Blues and browns are common in the shadows areas, but if you know me, you know I have an affinity towards purple. I like the color purple as opposed to browns and blues only to create the shadows, and this worked perfectly in this particular painting. that pretty much brings me to the end of the painting. As I continue finishing the painting, just wanted to make sure that you're already subscribed to my channel, because if you're not subscribed, you're probably missing out on a lot of my paintings, because I post 2 new tutorials every week, every Wednesday and Thursday, and sometimes some additional videos and live streams over the weekend too. So do hit the subscribe button and also hit the notification bell. That will notify you every time I post a new video. If you like this painting or the entire series, for that matter, whatever animation characters I've reimagined as real people, just give me a thumbs up and share me in the comments what your thoughts are. If you have any specific questions for this painting or any painting in general, I would love to answer your questions, and I always try to answer back promptly as much as possible. So feel free to put in your comments, like, share, subscribe, and all that good stuff. And I hope you enjoyed this painting as much as I enjoyed painting this. That's all for Moana, and I will see you soon in my next painting, which will be in a couple of days, I guess. And that's it for this painting. And a lot of important things is that, what you paint is and how you paint is just an unimportant thing. That your painting is the most important. So what method you choose to paint in, whether you want to do multiple layers, whether you want to do a direct approach, as long as you're happy with the end results, that's all that matters. So whatever method you want to approach, go ahead and do it, and try different approaches. That will make you learn newer things, and everything is about learning new things. With that, I'll see you next time. Bye.